aviation sector can be an engine of growth for any country. As the NDA government completes 2 years at the centre, let's evaluate the achievements and aspirations of the civil aviation sector in India. We have with us Civil Aviation Minister Shri Ashok Gajapati Raju. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you.
There has been much anticipation around the draft aviation policy, especially the 5x20 system, whether it's going to be cropped. So what are the major takeaways for the consumer, for the operator and for the government from this draft policy?
You see, a policy necessarily has to have a direction, and a policy by nature is not truth for all time. Periodically it needs to be revised. Probably if the 3-year or a 5-year term is given to a policy, there will be some definiteness so economic activity can plan. Okay. So this is the basic thrust in which we are working at. Of course, the idea is regional connectivity. It has been promised politically in the manifesto of the BJP, and we want to translate that into reality. So that has generated a lot of excitement. Now people are somewhere, some confusion also has crept in. This 520 which you are talking about, it's nothing to do with connectivity within India. It has everything to do to fly abroad. 5 years and 20 aircrafts, that's what it means. Right. Now certain airlines have found the levels of comfort and would like it to continue. On international travel, a lot of our air service agreements are not performed in the field because airlines are sitting on what we call bilaterals. Right. Whether it's public sector, whether it's private sector. So that sector also has to perform. It's not as if all foreign travel is profitable, all Indian travel is unprofitable. You have profitable routes everywhere, you have unprofitable routes everywhere, right, whether within the country or without. So that's another angle. Then when there's a capacity restraint or a constraint on capacity, prices of ticketing, these things become a matter of concern. Right. But overall, we have done these analysis and we find that what we call higher pricing tickets are less than 2%, 1.7% or so. So where we realize that where competition exists, competition is taking care of prices of tickets. Where ticket pricing is going high, when capacity is added or advisories are given, they are responding. Right. But these are temporary measures. Right. So overall we would like to get this going, connectivity one, reasonably priced one. So that's why in the policy we were aiming for an hour of flying around 2,500 rupees. So that has excited the imagination of everyone. Right. So we'd like to translate it into reality.
Right. And how soon is the policy going to be out, sir?
Right now it is doing, I think, interministerial consultations are going on. So after that, I guess the cabinet note will get ready, because certain decisions in the past, like you talked about 520, this is a decision from the cabinet, right, of some particular point of time. So if we revise it, I understand the decision has to be revised by the cabinet, so it has to go there. Right. So that works on its own dynamics. So all these things are there. So we hope that it will come soon.
Right. And so if you were to look back at the past 2 years, what would you say are the most important milestone for your ministry? What achievements would you like to highlight?
I would say the growth in the sector has been encouraging. I don't think any other country in the world has had a 20% passenger growth right. in 2 years, which we have managed in India. Of course, the economy has a lot to do with it, and this also impacts the economy. So it works both ways. Right. So in that sense, aviation is doing well. Now, how to keep this going? That is going to be a big challenge. Of course, there are activities that still need to come into the country. like maintenance, repair overall. It's all going out of the country, and it can generate a lot of jobs. So we are trying to put strategies in place where we can attract it back into the country and generate the sizable number of jobs which could be given to Indians, because India generally this MRO, if you look at the activity where these aircrafts are going to be serviced, it is basically Indian engineers who are working there. So we need to have that activity back in our country, and I think it's going to come.
And so if we were to talk about Air India, it's been facing losses for several years, but over the past year the losses have come down. Now, how do you plan to work on it? How is Air India going to be revived? It's been the face of Indian aviation for the longest time.
Yeah, I agree with that. Air India is a good airline. In fact, this is the first year after a long gap. It's not going to make an operating loss. So that's a good news.
That's a positive.
That's a good news. It has done the country proud in a lot of ways. But on the flip side, there's a lot of indiscipline there. Now, unless they are able to outgrow that indiscipline scenario, they are not going to be economically competitive. And no government can commit the taxpayers' money into just keeping an airline afloat. So they have to pull up their socks in that sense. If they do that, I think it can be an airline second to none. It's got the capability, it's got the thing, and it's done India proud in a lot of ways, including our recent Yemen evacuation.
The draft policy you mentioned, the thrust is on regional connectivity. Now, regional connectivity would also require a lot of infrastructure inputs, sir. So in the past couple of years, if you can share with us what particular investment initiatives have been taken as far as infrastructure is concerned?
So it's a continuous process. Improvement of existing airports, that's one angle of it. Because aircrafts are getting bigger and bigger. So though the number of aircrafts do not go up dramatically, the number of passengers does grow. So this is the basic trend. And all airlines like to standardize their aircrafts and things. It helps them in pilot training, maintenance, all other issues that are involved. So this is one type of a constraint. Now India has over 400 airstrips over the years. If you look at most of them, obviously are now today with some with Government of India, some with state governments, various those things. So how to activate, keeping a geographical thing in mind, how to make as many active as possible. As of today, I would say 31, 32 airports where aircrafts can land and take off, and it's not happening in our country. So they are inactive airports, they are underactive airports. Congestion, of course, there are very few, like Mumbai, Delhi. They are the places where there's congestion. So that problem, but investments are consistent. India is one of the few countries in the world that has satellite navigation also. Gagan, that program is there.
Right, and so PM Modi's vision has been minimum government, maximum governance. Now, this is often possible by moving services onto the digital platform. Can you tell us something about e-governance initiatives that DGCA has taken so far?
DGCA has a program, EDGCA, they have it, that's going on. Generally, aviation has been modern in the sense it has harnessed IT quite some time back, because everything is IT based, almost. So, including your navigation also, a lot of things. So that way, yes, it's a nice tool. And the main thing, it requires a certain type of policy.
And we'll take a short break here. When we return, we'll continue our conversation with the Aviation Minister.
आप सबने दुनिया भर में क्या मिसाल बनाई है। जिस सफाई से आपने कचरा वहीं फेंक दिया। और मन्नू आंटी क्या कूड़ा फेंकती हैं। ओलंपिक्स के गोला फेंकने वाले भी शर्मा जाएं। और ये देखिए, लक्ष्मी भाभी की सफाई तो गांव-गांव में प्रसिद्ध है। हमारे सुखिया भैया मन की करते, जहां सोचा वहीं शौच कर दिया। ये देश जो आप ही का घर है, उसे क्यों गंदा करते हैं? थोड़ी शर्म कर लो, सोच स्वच्छ कर लो।
अगर एक बार 125 करोड़ देशवासी तय कर लें कि मैं गंदगी नहीं करूंगा, तो दुनिया की कोई ताकत नहीं है जो हिंदुस्तान को गंदा कर सकती है।
स्वच्छ भारत, एक कदम स्वच्छता की ओर।
Welcome back. So if we were to talk about the budget allocation this year to the aviation sector, it has two sides. On the one hand, there is a commitment to develop non-functioning airstrips and airports. On the other hand, the excise duty on the fuel has been increased. So how do you see it for your sector, the budget allocation?
See, India has always, ATF has always been higher taxed than the rest of the world and higher priced. So in that sense, though one would want it to be low, it's going to be higher. And but it is in a level, at a level which was lower than what it used to be. So in that sense, that it has been a shot in the arm for the airlines. Of course, taxation angles, if one looks at, like some state governments have brought down the taxes, the VAT on ATF, and they have gained in numbers of what do you call it, airlines using that airspace and those airports. There are some that say, no, this is a rich man's domain and it should be taxed. Like our Delhi government, 20 to 25% they've increased. So like that, people have increased. But India is basically a federal country. And where taxation is low, airlines would like to move because it means that because it's their operating costs, it works out to be close to 40% ATF fuel. So they will like a place where they can still make money.
Right, so you mentioned that India is a federal country. If you talk about cooperative federalism, how has your experience been in the past couple of years interacting with states and pushing your policies?
We have been requesting states to be, as what I term, aviation friendly. And some of them have come on board. Some of them haven't. But it's okay. Those who have do benefit.
So you worked with the Vajpayee government and you now in the Modi government. What difference in the leadership do you find in both these leaders?
Both the leaders are people of stature. They both had a clear mind. You see, when you have got confused mind on top, confusion gets confounded. So when you have clear minds, things work. And both have had clear minds. Probably Vajpayee was, in today hindsight, more of the old school, you can say, while Modi ji is more in the modern sense. He would, these are the differences.
Right, sir. And if you can share with us the broad objectives that you have for the coming years as far as the aviation sector is concerned.
There are a lot of investment likely to come into the sector because this is basically, the airports are infrastructure.
Right.
So we anticipate about 12 to 15,000 crore investments in the next 5 years in this sector, coming both from the private sector and of course AAI also. So all put together, we expect it. Some of the state governments are also promoting greenfield airports. So where it gets promoted, the states will also be participating. So when everyone works together, things become easier.
Right. And sir, talking about investment, FDI in particular, we see the scope for 49% investment so far. FICCI has been proposing 100% investment, FDI. How do you see it? What percentage do you think would be good to continue the momentum of the growth of the aviation sector in the country?
You see, aviation sector investment is one thing, regulation is another.
Right.
Now the regulation part of it is totally Indian. So basically our finance department will ultimately, they will take a call on that. What is the right place to allow? But that would probably be taken because they would like more investment to come in. And India needs more aircrafts, needs different types of aircrafts also. We need also small aircrafts, and small aircrafts means higher cost. So otherwise our regional connectivity is not going to work the way we want it to work. So we need to balance everything.
Right. So if we were to talk about the flagship program of the NDA government, whether it's Make in India or Skill India, in what way is the aviation sector contributing to it, and what way do you think it can benefit from these scope programs?
You see, now skilling is an important thing. Whether it's pilot, cabin crew, maintenance crews, they are all skilled work. Training is important. We have training institutes within India, both in private and in the public sector, governmental things also. So all our training, in the training angle, we need to rise to our potential, the optimum levels of utility. Private sector is already at it. We find underutilized capacity within government, within our public sector. So we need to step that up.
Right. So along with the manpower, sir, do you think in the area of technology, we can also make some strides in the coming years?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
And do you think that's important, that the manufacturing sector in India grows in a manner that the aviation sector gets supported?
Yeah, for us the first thing would be trying to bring back maintenance, repair and overall. It would mean as a first step to bring maintenance, repair and overall activity into the country. That could be as far as manufacturing is concerned. Skill, yes. We need to rise to utilizing the existing capacities, adding more capacities, and probably India can be the training ground for the world.
Right, so from India being the training ground, if you talk about climate change issues in the Paris summit, we saw India taking leadership role, leading the world as far as climate change issues are concerned. Now, Kochi has become a totally solar-operated airport. What other initiatives are in the pipeline, sir, in the aviation sector vis-a-vis climate change, global warming issues?
You see, Kochi has shown the way. Right. 12 megawatts installed capacity they're going in. And now, if you look at it today, even Delhi has 5 megawatts. Then AI is not left far behind. They are also having a program and catching up. So, clean energy is required. Particularly, aviation is a little bit of a polluting activity, if you ask me.
It is, of course.
So, at least the other energies which can be clean energy, and if they are used, to that extent it's good. So I guess almost quite a few airports, they will be able to put in, probably if not like Kochi, at least 5 megawatts, 3 megawatts, things like that, those capacities. But that on 100 airports will mean something. So it will have a multiplying effect.
So if we were to talk about the common man, what people-friendly measures have been taken by DDCA in these couple of years in particular?
You see, all airports have to be physically challenge friendly. all airlines have to cater to them. Age is one concern, because aged people also travel.
Of course.
So all these angles of it, India is second to none in the world. And the complaint redressal mechanisms that have been put into place and fine-tuned are very interesting. These things ought to be taken forward, and it will change, but obviously you have to be consumer friendly right from the ticketing to the service.
Right.
And then the quality of services. Even there's some attention there. Generally, AI was not known to even grade their airports.
Is there monitoring now?
Now they've started. Because it's not only grading the service for a private this thing. So they have started that. So that's good.
Right. So if we were to talk about Indian Railways, one of the ways in which it earns most part of its revenues is through freight, through cargo transportation. If we talk about the airline sector, you did mention about cargo. In what way is it being emphasized? Because in railways, as we see that the freight transport helps subsidize the passenger fares. What kind of policy do you think can be taken up in the airline sector?
You see, the biggest airline in the world is a cargo airline.
Correct.
And then if you look at around in Europe, Lufthansa, which is a good passenger airline, is now doing a lot more cargo. India cargo is minuscule. I think one of the mindset is we are thinking of it as a to be exporter out of the country alone. There are only 2 freighters registered with the DGCA, Indian. So India has a lot of potential. Not only for export out of the country, because of our agri-climatic zones, our temperature sensitive goods,
Right.
e-commerce is increasing. So this is a method of transport. Now an airport is is an infrastructure. It's like a road. You run a truck on it, you run a bus on it, minivan on it, anything you can run. So how you utilize it is the question. For us in India, one of the restraints was what we call the dwell time. So efforts are going to bring down the dwell time.
Right.
So that economic activity does happen. So this dwell time is our concern. Like this, we are trying to identify what areas we have to address ourselves to, even if it is not directly with aviation, because dwell time will have a lot to do with immigration, with customs, with all this type of thing, with taxes. So, but we as a nodal listing agency, we have to push it with them. We have to bring it to reasonable levels. Then this air freight transit areas. There are lots of areas which are in proximity to airports, where in many countries, they have this air freight stations. So we need to have those also. So like that, we need to evolve, we need to grow. And probably today we are primarily passenger aviation within the country. So if freight also grows, it contributes to the economy. So it's good.
Right. So as and when the new policy comes into place, how do you see it opening up the market for new players, both in domestic and international airlines?
You see, there is a growth. Now, if we try to sustain the growth, that is good. Then try to spread out to areas which are unserved, because we are a big country, we need that.
Right. Would Northeast be one of the focus areas, sir? Because
Northeast will always be a focus area, because there are other angles they are very difficult in transporting. Their road connectivity, the rail connectivity, all this is low. So the practical way is to
take
fly.
a flight. Yeah.
But then flight is higher cost. So there's a trade-off that has to happen. So anyway, it will find its own level. We have put up hangars in Guwahati. We are trying to motivate airlines to have a night halt in Guwahati. Because if they have that, by default you get a late night and an early morning flight. And the early morning flight, because the sun comes up earlier, is very helpful for their connectivity. So this is the type of thing. So we have put up hangars in Guwahati. We have incentivizing them, saying that any airline that comes, okay, we will not charge you for a X period of time, like 6 months, things like that. So we are trying our best. Let's see where it takes us.
The past few incidents of terrorist attack or hijack has involved compromise in airport security across the world. We talk about Egypt or we talk about Brussels. In what way is your ministry looking into the security aspect of the sectors?
Indian security is by and large good. It's dynamic. They have categorized our airports and they have continuous drills. And it's a continuous process. They keep, like Bureau of Civil Aviation Security, it's a full-time job. Any incident anywhere in the world, they look into their research and threat perceptions come in. So this keeps going on. I wish it wasn't at those levels because security can become obtrusive also. But security has to be meaningful and we have to go ahead. Life has to be normal.
Right. And so finally, if you can share your vision for the coming years once again for the aviation sector in India, particularly against the global aviation industry.
Well, if you look at it globally, India is growing at a faster pace. And I guess we have the space and the manpower that can make it happen. And India can be one of the biggest aviation markets in years ahead, if you look at. If it is planned properly, worked at, it can happen. So I think we should aim at it.
Right, Mr. Gajapati Raju, thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you.